confident that your score would be the same all the way across. So is it the government that allows them to just decide whatever they want to cause you to be of a certain credit value or worth? Or how do they just get away with just, making a score when you don't have all of the accurate information from all three places?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, thanks for calling in, and I appreciate your question. When it comes to the three different credit reporting agencies, first of all, reporting your credit, not every credit reporting agency reports your credit the same because it depends on actually your lender. Not all lenders actually have a system or pay to report your credit to each credit reporting agency. So that's why you have different scores, or you have different reports which reflect different things. And also, when it comes to FICO, yes, they do have the authority to go ahead and give you a credit score. But the reason that honestly their authority matters is because they are accepted. Because the way that they decide to come up with your score, businesses and the business community has accepted that as a fair practice. Now, mind you, FICO is not the only scoring agency out there. You also have other ones, one by Experian, which does your Vantage score, which is anywhere from a 501 to a 990, which uses a little bit more of a different metrics. But businesses do not accept that score for valuing their determination to make loans or not. So really, it's about the institutions, and if they choose to use just the FICO, if they choose to use something called a Vantage score, and that's done by Experian themselves. Like I said, the three different credit agencies don't give you scores, but Experian does have a scoring system which they could provide to you. It's just a lot of people don't accept it right now. So you have some, but they're not all accepted by all businesses.
So when you have lenders that say things that like they take your mid score or they take your highest score, if the three credit reporting agencies are not the ones that develop the score, how is it that there's a mid score, a high score, and a low score? I've very rarely seen anyone receive a credit report and have the same credit score from all three reporting agencies. What is that calculation? How is that?
Well, they do have their own scores that they have, but when it comes down to it, what most credit lending agencies are looking for is your FICO, because your FICO isn't necessarily just that one individual. It looks at all three. It looks at everything that's out there about you, what you're scoring, and then makes a score. Now, of course, like I said, you do have three different scores when they give you their own scores from the credit bureau, from the credit reporting agencies. But you have to keep in mind, like I said, TransUnion may have your credit card loan that was done, or your merchant card that you had from Sears, but then one of the other ones might not. They might have you as a cosigner on one loan, but then Experian does not. And because of those little differences, you're going to have different scores. And then there's also fraud and different things that take place that sometimes makes it to one credit agency and doesn't make it to the other, which is why you have to pay attention to your credit report, very much so, because you can have something on there that shouldn't be on there. But the point is that because they have different things that they actually value and their metrics are slightly different, your scores will vary a little, but honestly, they won't vary so much that it's an extreme difference.
Okay, I remember when I was working full-time in real estate, one of the things that sometimes we would have suggested for a client to get them to settlement would be to make some payments on some things and then pay for a rescore.
Mm-hmm.
When you get a rescore done because you've purposely gone and paid on some debt that you knowledgeably have that shows up on all three reports, is that FICO doing the rescore, or is that the actual credit reporting agency helping to bump it up a few points to make you eligible for that loan?
That's usually the credit reporting agency. But see, the problem is, or the difficult part about that is the time frame, because a lot of, let's just say, your lenders don't report as often as you would like to, or as quickly as you would like to. So let's just say I made a payment on a credit card today. That more than likely isn't going to show up on my credit report tomorrow or next week. And honestly, it usually shows up every 30 days or so after a certain time frame. So it's important, like you said, in that process where you discuss specifically with the lending agency or your lender that if I make this payment on this account, I need you to report that to the credit reporting agency that you report to immediately. That will affect your score a little quicker, because once it shows up, an adjustment can be made. But
is the adjustment permanent though, or is that just for a specific amount of time that allows you to get to whatever it is that you're trying to repair your credit for? Is it a short-term fix, or does it actually remain at that particular point once you've done that, once you've made that payment?
No, it remains. It's not. Whenever you're paying down any debt, whether it's now or later, whenever you're paying down any debt, once that happens and that reflects a change, as long as you don't go back and do something negative, you're not going to go backwards. So it's just saying that, okay, instead of something showing up in the next 45 days, I helped this situation out where it showed up quicker, which made my score change quicker. But that doesn't mean my score is going to go back or go backwards. It's just saying that now you already have this reflectant, which effectively changed my score quicker, and then it should go up unless you make some type of mistake going forward.
Is that something that you would recommend to someone who's trying to repair their credit intentionally for the purposes of obtaining credit, or more credit rather, so that they can purchase something, a house, a car? Is that something that's recommended, or is that just one of the tricks of the trade?
It's something I actually would recommend, but even more so for people that are in really bad credit problems. They have really bad credit. The one thing I would recommend to anyone that's paying off your debt, okay, if you're dealing with someone that's not the original lender, okay, we're talking collection agencies, we're talking law firms here. My number one piece of advice that I can give you: do not pay the full amount. The reason being is because once your account has charged off, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference if you paid the whole thing off. It doesn't make a difference if you settle it. It's going to look the same towards on your credit score. So why, if you're trying to improve your credit, would you overpay for something or pay it in full when you could just go ahead and settle it for less of the amount, and then the effect is the same? So that's the number one thing I would say for anyone that's looking to improve their credit, especially when you look at collection agencies, because a lot of people think, if I go ahead and pay that off and it's going to improve my score because, even though it fell past due and charged off, I'll pay all the debt back. That's not true. You can go ahead and settle that debt, and I'll be honest with you, another tip I will give you is that you don't have to pay a third party to do it either. Okay? I've worked in banking for several years. I've taken these type of calls and I've dealt with these situations. You can deal with your direct lender and say, look, this is how much money I have. I want to settle this debt. And of course, you don't come in with your best offer. You got to negotiate a little bit. But nevertheless, you always want to have a situation where you're trying to pay less than that full amount, because not only does it leave or does it show that you paid quicker and you can move on from that situation, you didn't have to give up as much money to resolve the situation.
Okay, now these are tangible solutions for people who actually have credit scores.
Right.
But some people don't have any credit.
Right.
It seems impossible, but it's not. I've seen it where they think they have good credit because they don't owe anyone, but they've actually been paying for everything in cash.
Right.
And so explain to those listening how one can have no credit score whatsoever, and what the safest, to stay out of debt, recommended path to establishing credit would be.
Okay, well, first of all, that, like you said, is a very rare situation for anyone under the age of 30. First of all, anyone over the age of 30, because by a certain time we actually expect you as